Ever since development of Metroid Prime 4 was handed over to Retro Studios in 2019, fans and game journalists alike have been following the company very closely to see who they've brought on to this highly anticipated project. For nearly the past 2 years, Retro Studios has been on a hiring spree looking for additional talent to bring on. But not just any talent. We're talking AAA talent from game studios who've created the best-selling and best-reviewed games of the past 10 years. And yes, we did hear the rumors that Retro might be getting a new studio, but that doesn't appear to be the case as they just seem to be refurbishing their current studio. So we're not going to comment on those rumors anymore. So now, we're going to take a look at some of these people brought on to develop Metroid Prime 4. Starting with Kyle Heffley, who was hired as Retro Studios' new lead character artist back in October 2019. He has a history of working on games such as Call of Duty Black Ops and Sleeping Dogs, but his most important work comes from 343 Industries, on Halos 4, 5, and Infinite. No doubt, this is the part of his resume that got him the job at Retro, as designing characters with suits of armor in outer space is his specialty. What's also interesting is that quite a few former members of Retro Studios went on to work at 343, so it seems we've come full circle with this hire. Speaking of full circle, Stephen Dupree was brought on as Metroid Prime 4's lead designer in January 2020, having previously worked on New Super Lucky's Tale and Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze. Wait a minute, wasn't that game already made by Retro Studios? Well, yes. Dupree left Retro for 2 years to work on New Super Lucky's Tale and has since returned to work on Metroid Prime 4. This is nothing but good news, as Tropical Freeze is one of the best designed 2D platformers and video games of all time. So we're hoping Stephen Dupree can work that same magic on Metroid. Then we have Johnny Lungstead, who was formerly an art director at EA DICE on games like Battlefield 5 and Mirror's Edge Catalyst. Before he left to join Retro in February, he was at DICE for a whopping 12 years, and I think we can all agree that most of the games developed there have strong art direction. The Metroid Prime trilogy is known for its amazing art direction, and we think Lungstead has the expertise needed to make Metroid Prime 4 look its best. In conclusion, this may have been a big loss for DICE, but a big win for Retro Studios. The following month, Retro hired a new lead programmer by the name of Bharadwaj Bhatt Nandakumar, whose biggest claim to fame was the Call of Duty Black Ops series. He worked on every single game, even implementing new features such as theater mode. Does this mean Metroid Prime 4 is going to have online multiplayer? Or even a theater mode? Let's slow our roll just a bit before we get into some wild speculation. Though it wouldn't be surprising if Nandakumar was put on the project for his expertise in one of the most successful online shooters of all time. Moving on, Retro Studios also hired another EA vet in May, a VFX artist named Adad Morales. He used to work at Visceral, creating the visual effects for Battlefield Hardline and the studio's cancelled Star Wars game. After the studio unfortunately shut down in 2017, he worked at Blizzard Entertainment on a cancelled StarCraft first-person shooter. In case you haven't realized, a lot of the employees on this list have extensive experience with first-person shooters, which leads us to believe that maybe Metroid Prime 4 will continue the first-person gameplay of the original trilogy. I mean, why wouldn't it? Retro Studios also hired lead VFX artist Brian Irk, who worked on Shadow of the Tomb Raider, and senior VFX artist Nicholas Wilson, who spent 12 years at Gearbox working on Borderlands. I'm definitely sensing a pattern of the first-person shooter type here. And speaking of first-person shooters, Dylan Job joined Retro in September as the new director of development. He's worked in the industry for 25 years on some of the most influential franchises, like Doom, Twisted Metal, Call of Duty, and most importantly, Warhawk. Yeah, remember Warhawk? Of course you do. His job as a director will mostly consist of non-creative work like creating schedules, evaluating employee performance, etc., etc. If he's been working in the game industry for as long as I have been alive, he is more than qualified for this job. Great to see he's handling another influential game series like Metroid. Retro Studios also hired someone else in September, environment designer John Marcella, from Santa Monica Studios. Yes, the same Santa Monica Studios that developed 2018's groundbreaking God of War. Marcella spent a decade at the company working on this ambitious sequel, as well as God of War Ascension. If his work on these games is anything to go by, then Metroid Prime 4 is going to have some incredible environments. Retro Studios has been hiring only the most talented people in the industry, and that couldn't be more apparent with Marcella and their most recent hire. That person being Marissa Palumbo as Metroid Prime 4's lead producer. She has an incredible resume. From working at Rockstar Entertainment for over 10 years on games like Grand Theft Auto 4 and 5, LA Noire, Max Payne 3, and Red Dead Redemption. All of these being the most high-caliber games of the last generation. For the last 6 years, though, she worked at Blizzard Entertainment on Overwatch, arguably the most popular team-based shooter in recent memory, which only adds to our suspicions that Metroid Prime 4 is going to have a multiplayer mode, but that's a video for another time. Obviously, Retro Studios has hired more people than the 10 we've listed here, but there is no denying that the expectations for this game are incredibly high, and they know it. We are certain that Metroid Prime 4 is in good hands after looking at these new employees, and we can't wait to finally see something of this game sooner rather than later. What do you think of these new hires? Let us know in the comments section below, and be sure to subscribe to Game Explain for more on Metroid Prime 4. Until next time, bye!